Hello, and welcome back to the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. You know me, I'm your host, Stephanie Pinto, and today I am diving into a fascinating and really powerful emotional intelligence tool for parents that I think only 1% of the population knows about. It's Heart Coherence. Okay, I made up that statistic. I wasn't able to pinpoint the exact number of people worldwide who know or practice heart coherence, but it is rapidly growing due to an increased interest in things like emotional intelligence, stress management, and also holistic health practices. As parents, we all have these moments where when stress is high and emotions run wild, we struggle to stay calm. But most people have no idea that their heart and its powerful electrical energy directly impacts their brain activity, their stress levels, and even hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, right? They're the hormones that flood our body when we're really gonna flip our lid. So this means that when you're getting angry with your kids or you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, your heart is playing a bigger role than you might ever realize. The good news is there is a simple and science-backed technique that can actually help you reset in real time. No yoga mat needed, no tree and nature and sitting down with a quiet space. Like, you can do this on the fly in the heat of the moment. I'm so excited to bring this to you if you have never heard of Heart Coherence. Joining me today is the amazing Jackie Black. She's a certified results coach. She's a certified HeartMath coach and mentor, and she has a background in education and also over 40 years of personal development experience. So we are in good hands. After leaving teaching due to burnout, Jackie discovered powerful science-based techniques that completely transformed how she manages her stress, her energy, and her emotional well-being. Now, she helps parents move from overwhelm to feeling recharged, calm, and connected using real-time, eyes-open tools from HeartMath, positive intelligence, and emotional resilience research. Her approach is really practical, it is really empowering, it's easy to do, and it's designed to help us parents feel a whole lot more present with our families. So Jackie's going to be sharing things like, what is heart coherence and why is it a game changer for parents? How do we use it in these tough, overwhelming moments? The fascinating link between your emotions and your child's nervous system. A simple heart coherence exercise that we did together, and you can follow along and do it with us. And obviously, how does this practice deeply affect our bond with our kids? I know that this conversation is really going to shift how you think about stress and about parenting and even your own emotions. Jackie has some eye-opening insights and simple tools that can help you stay grounded, calm, connected, even in the toughest of the moments. Now, I get it, because 90% of people resist things that are new or unfamiliar or different, but sometimes the very thing that feels unfamiliar is exactly what's been missing in your parenting journey. So I invite you to keep an open mind and an open heart. See what I did there? And let's get into it. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation. They're the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work, and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, their elders and ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Jackie, it is so lovely to have you on. Can you please give us a bit of a background about heart coherence? Because for me, it is still something that is really quite new. I probably know 1% compared to what you do. And I know there's a lot of people, especially a lot of parents out there, who would benefit from it, but have no idea and have never heard of the term heart coherence. So, take us through it.
Take you through it. Okay. Well, interestingly, it's something that I've noticed quite a few people in that sort of wellbeing space are starting to bring up. So for sure, there'd be a lot of people that would know nothing about it. It was a term that I first became aware of. Oh, I'm just trying to think when. Probably around 2022. And initially, my understanding of heart coherence was through the technology. And it was, understanding how that your heart and your brain can be coherent. They can entrain, that beautiful term of entraining something, where something links up and sort of sends that more direct signal. Mm-hmm. So the way I was initially introduced to it was through technology, that you can use a particular device, the concept comes from, I'll go backwards a little bit, which comes from an organization called the HeartMath Institute. And the HeartMath Institute has been around for 25 plus years. And they've been doing a lot of research into the heart and the brain and how the heart talks more to the brain than the brain does to the heart, which is a really
Say that
interesting.
again. The heart.
Heart talks more to the brain than the brain talks to the heart.
Wow.
And they've done experiments. So I'm going to go off on a tangent before I come back to it. But like, this is what they've discovered. This is how amazing they've discovered. So your intuition fires first, so that the stuff that comes from your heart fires first, sends it straight up to the brain, and then the body reacts. And they've tested this by wiring people up to computers, and they've had like random images come across the screen. And what they've noticed through this, and it's been replicated in lots of different places, so not just in the HeartMath Institute Research Laboratory. Other people have gone, really? Let's go and see if we can replicate this. And what they've discovered is the heart has a sense of what the image is before it comes in, which is sounding bizarre. So like, it can be beautiful images that feel really gorgeous. And they can be they had images that were quite disturbing, triggering, and whatever. And the heart's energetic wave, so that sine wave that we get when we get a ECG, when we're not in coherence, it goes chaotic. So it's erratic. It's almost sharp, and it almost looks unpleasant to look at. Whereas when the heart is in coherence with the brain, it's this lovely, soft sine wave. So that heart rate variability has a big impact. And every emotion carries its own energetic signal.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're discovering through all of this stuff, which is like, I'm a science geek when it comes to this stuff. I love personal growth and personal development, but give me the science behind it. And I love going down that rabbit hole, because people, a lot of people, when you hear these terms, they often think, well, it's a bit woo-woo. It's all that new age stuff. It doesn't really relate to me. But if they're training people, the elite, the SEALs, the Navy SEALs, the first responders in hospitals, etc., how to become coherent, so that when they are in that high state of alertness that they need to be, that the messages and signals that they're sending from their heart to their brain about the decisions that need to be made in the moment are clear.
So what usually happens when people who don't know about this, and we are stressed or overwhelmed and we're dysregulated, what's going on with our heart and our brain in those moments?
So the heart is sending erratic signals, because if we're really, really stressed, so I don't know how familiar, I'm sure you talk about it, but I don't know how familiar your audience is with the concept of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So that sympathetic nervous system is when we're in those sort of really high range levels of things. And the parasympathetic is that rest and reset. So sympathetic, fight and flight, we all know about that, the impact of, the amygdala is letting too much in. And sadly, in the life that we live, we've trained our amygdala to be such a floppy muscle. If we want to think of it like a muscle, it's letting everything through, and we're not allowing it to rest. And so we're in high states of cortisol dump and adrenaline. And these chemicals, particularly things like cortisol, stay in your body anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. And the worst thing that we do is, apart from drinking coffee to stimulate that, and not that coffee's a bad thing, love a good coffee in the morning, but if you're going back into those things that are making you reactive, you wonder why you can't sleep at the end of the day. Well, you've got cortisol, which is a wonderful thing to get you out of bed in the morning, but you don't need it when you want to rest and reset.
Yeah, and if it's flooding our system throughout the day because we have so much on and life is so busy, and then we have our kids who add to our challenges and stress and just everything that's happening, is it right that we are, we're living in this sort of heightened state, and it becomes normalized? I think we just feel, I sometimes feel that I'm wasting time or I'm lazy by sitting down in the middle of the day. And I'm like, I can't sit down, or I can't watch Netflix. Like, I'll grab some lunch and I'll come back, and, that's for later when the kids are in bed, then I can relax. But, we're going through the whole day being up here.
Well, interesting you're talking about that. So I would invite you then, Steph, to think about who was your role model for that. Because I know my role model for that sort of behavior was my mum. She was always doing something. right? She was always busy with something. Not that she wasn't busy with work as well, but she was always doing lots of things. And so I know, like, even now I have to remind myself that it's okay. Like, if I've stopped and I'm sitting down and I'm doing what I need to do, resting, digesting, eating food, and allowing my system to rest and digest and actually get the benefits of it. If I hear my husband walking, I think, oh, I should be. And it's like, are you mad?
Yes.
That's stupid.
Yeah. I think we've just gotten
What
so
I
used.
watched,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
That's what we learned. And I think it's so ingrained in us that we've got to be doing something all the time and we've got to be productive, and that rest is not productive.
No.
Rest means you're lazy. These are all the stories that come up for me.
Oh, yeah.
Rest means you're not being productive, you're not benefiting people around you, you're not getting things done, you're lazy, and you're wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's always something you need to be doing, and why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, basically.
And we have to retrain ourselves. I mean, it was interesting. It's so interesting that this is where this conversation has gone at the moment, because this was actually something I was talking with a parent group about last night, about how we relive the patterns we were taught as parents. And we don't actually stop and go, but that was their time of life. That was where they were at. Is that relevant to us? You know, like, are the choices that they made about how they wanted me to behave in the house, or how they wanted the house to look, or the feel that they wanted to have, or how they responded to what we ate at dinner time, is that the person I want to be? We have a choice, you know.
Really empowering.
Really empowering. I remember going, when one of my mentors once said to me, we are responsible for everything in our lives and everything not in our lives. That's like, yeah, I don't want to hear that.
That's confronting. What do you mean?
Very confronting. But it's good, because even if there are things that we can't control, we can still control how we choose to react or respond to it.
You know what? I had so part of my work, I talk about this a tiny amount on the podcast, but part of my work is working with kids and teens with anxiety. And yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I had one of my clients, and I go to her place, and she and her mum are there. And I literally grabbed out a piece of paper because of what we were talking about and the stuff that was coming up. And I said, give me a piece of paper. And I drew a circle, and I talked about the circle of control. And she's 10, so same age as my oldest. And I said to her, do you realize that there are things that are within your control, things that you have control over? And then there are things outside, and I drew this outside the circle, things that you can't control. And we literally spent probably half the session, which was not in the plan, because I just thought, I wish someone had taught this to me when I was a kid, that there are things that I can control, and what is that? And we filled it in. And then I said, and what can't you control in your life? Like at school, for her, it's school stuff. And so I love that we're talking about this, because I don't know, when did I realize that? In my 30s. Like,
so let's take that one step further, because as you talk about that, because I've talked about this with my grandson, who is on the autism ADHD spectrum, and he's also almost 10 years old. And I talked to him because he loves superheroes and, you know, those sorts of characters. And I talked to him about it being his superpower, and that kids his age don't actually know. And this is a really big superpower that he can take forward. And, you know, that's something that I hope he can lean into on a regular basis. But interesting, as you're saying, like, what's in our control, what's outside our control. So, and I will get back to heart coherence in a minute, because I know we've gone off on a few tangents. For me, one of my biggest aha moments, and it was like, you know, that stuff that's just, it's under your nose, it's obvious, but you just don't, it's not until someone states it that you go, of course.
Yeah.
That makes total sense to me. Okay. So we are, as I say to my clients, who is the person that is in your space 24/7? Me. I'm the only person. So if we think that as I'm writing the script of my life and what my life looks like, then anyone that is connected to me, from my closest to, as the circle extends, they are bit players in my life. So they might be a leading, my husband might be the leading male in my life. And, and my daughter and my son, they also are leads, and their partners or their kids or whatever. They are characters, main characters in my story. But I am the lead actor in my story. But I'm also the writer of my story. And so in my head, what I've done as I've grown up and as I've been molded and shaped by all my life's experiences, et cetera, I've written a story about how I would like my life to look. And I've also written a story in my head about how I would like the person that I want to be in an intimate relationship with, what that's going to look like for me. And I've written in my head what my kids are going to be like and how they're going to respond to their life. And then progressively, and the types of partners they're going to bring into their life. So let's sort of keep expanding the circle. Okay, I'm writing that story. And then I get together with my husband and I say something and he reacts in a way that I haven't done a checklist on in my story. Hang on a second. That's not in your script.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's not on the script.
That's not what I expected you to say. Sorry, when I say this, here's your options, but not that one. What do? We react. And why is that? Well, because, and why do they then react to us? Well, guess what? They've written their own story. And we've never actually sat down and had a conversation. And I think anyone has really had I'm not saying anyone, let's take that back. But I would say the majority of people have never taken the time to have that conversation with those that are nearest and dearest when they're not responding the way we imagined, and stopped in that curiosity for long enough to ask them, oh, okay, so tell me about that. Why do you see it like that? Because this is what I'm seeing. Right? So from when I'm talking about it, like, and even to the point that the other day my husband and I were out for dinner and he was saying he was frustrated. He's got someone new that he's employed in his office and we both work from home. And the times that this person has come in, he's wanted me to come in, but I've had other things on. And that's caused him frustration. And we had to actually sit down and have that conversation again. I went, I recognize it's important enough for you. So now I have to respect that and go, okay, it's not my priority, because in my story of my day, these are my priorities. And I forgot that this is these sorts of things are really big and, sincerely important to you. And if I don't respect that, we're going to keep butting up against each other and there'll be problems going forward. Same with our kids. And we know that under everything is an emotion, right? So if you think about, if we're going to go backwards, if we think about what the HeartMath Institute gets us to recognize is, in terms of our resilience, we've got 4 main domains. We've got the physical, which is easy to recognize, the mental, which is also easy to recognize, the emotional, and the spiritual. And if you think of them like battery cells, when they're all full, we can show up as our best. But you deplete any one of those and you don't have the capacity to be the person you want to be in any given situations. We know when we are hungry, we're agitated, we're short-tempered, we're irritated. It doesn't matter what, we need to get something into our body to fill that physical need up, right? When we've got too many tabs open and our brain's too busy, someone will ask you a question and you'll snap at them. You don't mean to, it's just you're focused on something else and you're trying to, whatever it is. When we feel disconnected from our values or from our community, or there's something going on, that's spiritual domain. So the spiritual isn't, religious. It may have an element for some people, but really the spiritual is about that connection to your own values, that connection to humanity, how you want to show up as the best version of you at your deepest soul level. And then the emotional, which is obvious when there's big blowouts. And the area that we deplete the fastest of all those 4 cells happens to be the emotional.
That would have been my guess.
That's the one that goes, so you have a big blowout, it's just like putting your foot on the gas pedal and you've just drained that cell.
So how do we you with heart coherence and HeartMath, how do we tell us more about, let's say we've drained one of those battery cells, the emotional one. Maybe it's in the moment, or maybe it's something that we're just noticing generally. I'm feeling really stressed. This week we've had a lot on. What's the connection and what can we do and how can we use it
Okay.
to help ourselves?
Yeah. So I talk about 5 steps in terms of resilience. And the very first thing we do is we first need to recognize, right? So I talk about recognize, reviewing, what we can do to recharge, how we can refine it, and how we can repeat it. And it's got to be things that don't feel like they're adding to what you're doing every day. So it becomes, when I talk about the techniques or the things that I bring in, I talk about things that you can pretty easily habit stack. And the beautiful thing, and I want to just share this here because I know you're talking with parents, the languaging that I'm going to offer both sides, how you can share it with your partner, if that's what, and by the way, don't ever expect them to do it. Be the example and the invitation. That's what I say to everybody. Be the example, be the invitation.
Be the
So
example, be the invitation, but don't
yeah,
expect them.
don't expect and get upset if they're not on board. That's okay. Show up as who you want to be, and they'll either step in or they'll step away. It's entirely up to them. If they see what it's doing for you and how it's working, then they may be interested in trying it.
And
Right?
also, we're not, to go back to your earlier analogy, we're really the only writer of our own script. We can't script or write someone else's. So if it's not, and this is the same with parenting styles or approaches and emotionally intelligent parenting, the people who are listening to this podcast either at least enjoy or find some, it resonates with them, or they absolutely love it and they wish their partner would do it. But it's the same, it's really the same with parenting or with anything, or with eating healthy or looking after your
Absolutely.
body. You can
Absolutely.
model it, you can invite them, but the focus is on ourselves because we cannot force other people as much as we would like, and as much as we're like, but it's really good for us, or but it's the best way to do XYZ for our kids or whatever. Like it's such a big lesson to learn.
Absolutely. I'm doing this, it works for me. If you're ever interested in figuring out, if it might work for you, let me know and we can talk about it. That's it. Leave it at that. Because we do, as you would be aware, we do what our highest values are. And I remember, as you were saying with the food stuff, I remember like it used to frustrate me how my husband would eat and that he wouldn't exercise and he doesn't like. I, my highest value, I love my family. My highest value is my health. That is my highest value. It's been that for years. Now, family is, like a nudge below it. It's not much below it. But if I can't move my body first thing in the morning and replenish what I need to replenish, I can't show up and give to the people that I want to give to in the way that I want to give to them. So like if I've ever got to go on an early flight and I can't exercise first thing in the morning, I'm antsy when I'm getting off that flight. The first thing I've got to do is get out, move my body, tick that box. It only needs to be for 10 or 20 minutes and then I'm good to go.
Mm.
But it's that whole thing, we all hear that story, fill your cup first. It's that whole thing of put your oxygen mask on first. You are no good to anybody if you think pushing through is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely no good to anybody. So be good for yourself first.
Okay, so tell us, let's move
Let's
into heart
go.
math,
The heart coherence.
heart
The heart coherence
coherence, because I
stuff.
would
There
love
you
to,
go.
I
Yeah.
even would love to
Okay.
know, can we
We
do
are going to do one very shortly.
brilliant? Because some people will be listening to this on the podcast, some people you will be watching us on YouTube. So if you want to see, do people need to see, or are
No,
they going to be able to do it listening?
absolutely not. They can do it just by listening because the beauty of these techniques is their eyes open.
Okay.
And I'll teach you the first one. But the whole idea with heart focused breathing, which is the very first step.
Heart focused breathing.
First technique, it's just a very effective technique to take you out of reaction.
Okay.
So you're doing that shifting process to start the process of getting into more coherence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's powerful and effective because it helps with self-regulation. Now, people see it and they go, oh, I'm doing that breathing technique. but it's not breath work and it's not meditation.
Okay.
And what I love about these things is you entrain your heart very quickly to calm down. You put your body into rest and reset. And what I get people to do, actually, which I get them to do before we even do this. So, Steph, are you good at finding your pulse? Some people go, I have no pulse. But
Yeah, I can find it up here. Can't get it on my wrist to
right.
save
So
my
wherever
life.
you can find it, I'm just going to ask you just to slow your breathing down and find your pulse
Yep, yep. Okay.
and just feel it pulsing away and just slow your breathing down, just a little slower and easier than usual. Okay.
Yeah.
Now tell me, on your out breath, what do you notice?
Hmm. I just noticed the rhythm.
And what's happened with the rhythm on the out breath?
It's pretty calm.
Slows down?
Yeah, it's slow. It's like regular and rhythmic.
Mm-hmm. But on the in breath, it's a little bit faster, not necessarily a lot. But on the out breath, it starts to slow down a little bit.
Yeah. I
Okay.
didn't notice that. I didn't notice that before.
You've just turned on your parasympathetic nervous system
Mm-hmm.
just by breathing. And so, what we do with heart focused breathing, it's the first step to shift that state, to focus your energy, to bring alertness and calm into the body all at the same time. And it can help you maintain your composure in challenging situations. So, even if you don't know any other technique, most of the techniques, pretty much all of the techniques, build on this one. They add like another
Okay.
layer to it. So, heart focused breathing, very, very easy. And these are the words you can say to yourself. You can do it eyes open, you can do it eyes closed. But what we get people to do is to focus the attention in the area of the heart and to imagine that their breath is flowing in and out of their heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual.
So we're
And
focusing on the heart space,
so
like
imagining that,
visualizing it.
visualizing it. Sometimes, people like to put their hand on their heart. I know when I'm out and about, if I'm not bringing my focus down there, because I wear necklaces, I'll hang on to my necklace and I'll just sort of put my hand there. But you can do it without putting your hand on your heart. But as you're learning this, people learn it initially with their eyes closed, but it is an eyes open. The intention is to do this and practice it as an eyes open technique.
Okay.
So what I'm going to get you to do, and if anyone is listening would like to do this, first of all, notice how you're feeling at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get you to, if you want to close your eyes, you can. Leave them open. Up to you. Focus your attention in the area of the heart. And staying focused in the area of the heart, imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. You might want to inhale for 5 seconds and exhale for 5 seconds, or use whatever rhythm is comfortable.
I can do about 4 seconds. So is it okay to do it sitting down as well as lying or just standing?
I wouldn't say do it lying down. I'd say do it sitting up while you're walking around.
So the point is to be able to do it.
Eyes open, even in conversation.
Wow, there's like a
What are you
wave of
noticing?
calm. It's like just a wave of calm. Like I don't need to be anywhere else, do anything else. I'm just here.
Take your hand off your heart. It's fine. So can you imagine how simple that is? Like, as I said, as you and I have discussed previously, I love the fact I don't have to find a tree to sit under and meditate and hear the sounds of the ocean and the birds and stay calm and do it out of sight because I don't want anyone to know and I'm feeling dysregulated. You can be in a situation. So here's a beautiful example of how you can use it. You can have a dysregulated 2-year-old going off because they're not getting the lollies that are at eye level in the shops. And just regulate yourself and know that if you're not saying to your child over and over again, stop that, people are looking, what will happen for that child, and I think you actually put a post up about this, is that 90-second cycle. because all they're doing in that moment is dumping cortisol and adrenaline into their body. They're not telling themselves the story of, I didn't get my lolly. They've thought about it, it's dumped. But if you keep telling them how you feel about how they're reacting, they're going to keep going into story and
Feeds
they're
the
going
loop.
to keep dumping. And that tantrum is going to go on for a very long time. How do I know this? I did this with a very reactive 2-year-old a couple of years ago, and a woman thought I'd done a magic trick. She came over to me and she said, "Oh, I'll help you." And I went, "No, it'll pass." She said, I went, "It'll pass." And she got up and came over, because what happens is once that 90-second passes, you get back to ease, you get back to neutral, or you get back to joy. You go back to joy if you don't keep feeding the story.
Mm.
And she got up after 90 seconds, came over, took my hand, and we went on. And this woman's looking at me like, what did you just do?
Magic, voodoo.
It's magic. And the other thing, like, parents really need to know. So what we know about heart coherence, okay? So we can entrain the heart and the brain very, very quickly. We can make conscious choices. And in the space of what I shared, it's a very, very easy thing you can do in the morning. You can ask yourself, and for kids, we talk about inner weather. So this is possibly a good example for parents as well, because I know some parents love using this because it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about your inner weather, and you can have really dark, emotional, stormy days, right? So that, if you think about an emotional state, that could be when you're really, really angry and you're really frustrated and, your blood's boiling and all of that. That's your dark, stormy weather. And you can imagine that for kids. And if we think about a grid, right? Top left. So in that state, that's in your sympathetic nervous system state, right? On the bottom left, you can have, it might be a grey day. So when we're feeling a little bit lonely, maybe a bit sad, a bit isolated, a bit bored. Boredom is a very energy draining state to be in.
Mm.
That's that lower left. And you're actually in that rest and reset state, but not in a good way. You're sending erratic signals still from your heart to your brain, because you're not actually regulated in a way that's beneficial. On the other side, when it's nice, the sun's out, it's calm, there's a nice breathe, lower right hand still in that lower area. And then if you go to the top right, you're back in that sympathetic nervous system state when you're feeling happy, joy, the sun is out, it's a beautiful day, you can, smell clean, fresh air, whatever puts you in that upper end state. And you can think about that in terms of your mood. So those higher energy moods, things like love, joy, gratitude, excitement, bliss, any of those are those high end ones. On the other side, as we said, the opposite side of that grid is your anger, your frustration, your jealousy, vengefulness, whatever are those higher end ones. And then the bottom ones, when you're feeling calm, peaceful, at ease, all of those are your lower end ones. And what you can do is you can get up in the morning and you can think about, it's actually called a depletion to renewal grid if we're going to use the language of HeartMath. But if we think about our inner weather, where is my inner weather today? And my inner weather, is it on the left-hand side? Is it on the right-hand side? Now, if it's on the right-hand side and I'm on that lower end of the right-hand side, do I want to lift that, or am I quite happy to be on that lower right? And if you are, that's fine. If you want to lift it, you can use a heart coherence technique and bring in, and this one is called quick coherence, and just bring in making a sincere attempt to experience a regenerative feeling, like the care you feel for somebody or for someone in your life, anything like that, a pet, a friend, a family member, an experience that you've had where you've had particular joy. Any of those experiences. It could be music that you listen to.
Mm.
And as you're breathing and you're focusing in on your heart, you can appreciate that feeling, and that lifts your coherence, and you're sending a clearer signal from your brain to your heart and helping your body function. And we know, just as a thing to people, we know. So you can tell me, if you walked into a room and two people were glaring at each other, you'd probably say you can cut the air with a knife. Or if you're at a party and everyone's vibing, wow, you can feel this air of excitement. That's everybody's energetic fields that they're putting out. It's not woo-woo.
Mm-hmm.
We can read each other's energetic fields as we approach it, and it's about a 3-foot radius around us. So what does that mean for our kids? That means our kids are like the canaries in the mine. They know from studies that anywhere between 48 to 72 hours, they can pick up what's going on for you as a parent. So if you don't learn to regulate yourself, then please don't blame your kids for being dysregulated, because we are, as I said, the example and the invitation. And kids learn by osmosis. And then they need to, if they get to a point where they're aware enough, they need to unlearn. But how can you teach these things to your kids? Because this is probably a very useful tip for your parents that are listening.
Yes, maybe we can finish up with, can we, because that was going to be my last question.
Absolutely.
Can we teach this to kids? And if so, how? Can you wrap it up in like a 30-second?
I'm going to do my best. So definitely the inner weather. Talk to them about the inner weather. And if they're feeling dysregulated, ask them, would they like to make it sunny? Right? And it's different languaging for different age groups, but I've done this with my 3-year-old and 5-year-old grandkids, and it works. So you say to them, would you like to make it sunny? And then they'll probably say yes. And then you can say to them, okay, can you think of someone that you really love or something really fun that you like to do? And get them to tell you what it is so that you can really buy into that vibe with them and say, okay, put your hands on your heart. And I want you to think about all that beautiful love and excitement you feel about XYZ, your soccer game or, your favorite toy or whatever it is. And I want you to just breathe with me, breathe in slowly, and don't over exaggerate, because they're slowing their breath down is harder for them than it is for us. But just slow your breathing down a little bit, and let's do that 3 or 5 times. And how you're feeling now. Have we turned the sun on yet? And I mean, my grandson, when I first did this, he told me he wanted to change the color because he said he was feeling really dark and he wanted to have a unicorn color. And he was like, when he did it, and he went, oh, my heart's unicorn colored. And then he taught it to his mother, which was beautiful. But this is what I mean. This is something, if you can teach a 5-year-old, and a 5-year-old can then go and teach their parent or their friend, and you can do this with consistency, and invite them. Don't ever force them. Would you like to change the weather today? If they say no, that's fine. But adding also for yourself that layer of some sort of care, appreciation, or compassion elevates that coherence really, really fast. So
oh my goodness.
I know we've run out of time. There's so much to talk about. I mean, as you know, I could talk about this for forever because it lights me up. And it's so important.
So where can people find out more about you and about Heart Coherence?
Okay, so there'll be links to my Instagram and my Facebook business page. At the moment, if you go to jackieblack.au, that is my website, but it's going to be completely different in about a week's time or 2 weeks' time. So it'll be jackieblack.com.au eventually, but that's what it is. But what they can also do is, if they would like to download a checklist that really gives them some, it's not specifically heart focused or heart coherence stuff, but just a daily practices checklist of how to create calm in the chaos, they can go to jackieblack.com.au and go /Stephanie. And that is a link to a gift for them for being your listeners. And if they've got any further questions, by all means,
reach out
and have a chat, because this is really important stuff and we've all got important work to do. And I want to finish with one little quote, which I heard that really was powerful. And it was said by a guy who's written a book recently. His name's Itai Flesher. He's not a parenting specialist, but in his book, he has a line and it says, our children are the living messages we send to a future we cannot see.
And
I mean, I get goosebumps when I hear that and I say that.
I did.
Yeah. And what sort of future are we sending them into?
Thank you so much for coming today. What a joy talking to you and learning about Heart Coherence. And I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes below or underneath the video if you're watching on YouTube. Jackie, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. And thanks for having me. And thank you for all the beautiful work you're doing, because I love what you put out there and parents are really getting some great stuff. So thanks, Steph.
Hey everyone, it's Steph again. Well, I think that is the fastest and simplest technique I have ever used to shift my nervous system state. A huge thank you to Jackie for coming on and sharing about heart coherence with us. I really encourage you to, the moment you click off this episode in like 10-20 seconds and it finishes, wherever you are, stay. If you're in the car or if you're walking, give it a go. You can do it eyes open. You don't have to be sitting down. Like, I really encourage you to actually take something away practical from this conversation. And after you do that, then I would love if you could please take a moment to just go back onto the app or wherever you're listening to the podcast, on Apple, Spotify, or whatever, and just give it a little rating or a review. It really, really helps. I know every few episodes I mention it, but it does make a difference. And if you've got some benefit out of listening along to any episode, then that would mean the world to me. All right, have a beautiful rest of your week, and I will see you guys next week for the next episode.